Miranda. This unit is absolutely going to be the talk of the town for at least the next week, possibly the next 2 weeks. With her debut coming in just a few days on Global, there's a lot of hype surrounding this unit, and for good reason. I don't think she's as hyped up as someone like Haruto, but I think there's a lot of people that are still really looking out for her. So we're bringing back the good old series, the series that we always bring back whenever any hype unit comes out. The game, which is the greatest unit series, or the best unit, whichever one. It depends how I'm feeling that day. Which pretty much this series is just I talk about the units. I tell you some general stuff that I've been seeing with the unit, how good that unit is, and if they're the best unit in the game. Which so far, most of the units that I've did videos on the channel for this series hasn't been the best units in the game. I don't think I did one for Mako. Yeah, I don't think I did. And she practically is the best unit in the game. So with Mommy Phantom Sniper coming out, let's talk about real quick exactly what she's doing for everybody that may be sleeping under a rock and don't completely understand what Miranda's kit is. Miranda is a light taunt tank that is able to heal her own curse and poison on her art, and also is able to increase all allies magic damage by 30%, which is a stackable buff that she can do with her true art over and over again until I guess eventually it just runs out. She is an extremely strong magic taunt tank though, let me say, being able to solo tank against some of the toughest fights in the game, including Ignis. Yeah, you can actually farm Ignis with Miranda. It's kind of crazy. Of course, you still need team setup. She can't just do it all on her own, but she is an extremely good magic taunt tank for that because she has the innate magic resist 50% up. Plus, if you're using her true weapon, that's an extra 40% up. Plus, her ridiculous passive, which pretty much makes it to where as soon as she drops her barrier, she practically gets it right back because she gains 50 arts. So there's a lot of good stuff happening with Miranda. I think she's a very capable taunt tank compared to some of the other taunt tanks in the game. I think a lot of people are going to be seeing a lot of use out of her. The thing is, I think that she's not going to be as popular as other characters just because she is a taunt tank. Her being a taunt tank means that you don't necessarily need her in every piece of content. I even say this in my top 10 video for 2021, is that taunt tanks aren't necessarily needed in most content because you're practically just wasting a slot because you could clear the content faster if you were using someone else. What I mean by this, because some people may get confused about what I'm exactly saying here, is that let's take for an example, you're farming the new event, right? You're farming the new Shaman King event, not the special EX Hyper, just the regular special EX, and you are able to, let's say, nuke that event. Well, if you're able to nuke it, then why would you ever use a taunt tank? You see what I mean? Because the taunt tank is just going to slow you down because no matter which way you put it, most taunt tanks in the game aren't really going to be hitting extremely hard due to their attack stat being relatively low, which Miranda's attack stat isn't going to be too low. She's going to have at least 3k attack because she has a 5-star magic slot. But of course, most of her stats are going into that defensive stat more so than her attack. Of course, that doesn't mean that you can't pull off nukes with Miranda if you wanted to for some odd reason. But most situations, I feel like a lot of people are going to be using her. But for in-game, I think she's going to have a lot of viability and a lot of fun team comps around her. Because against any fight that is magic, she's practically just one of the best taunt tanks in the game. It's like, oh, you're fighting a boss that deals magic damage? Just bring Miranda with her true weapon, bring a magic damage dealer, and like I said in my video, this unit has a lot of synergy with some of the best magic damage dealers in the game. You're looking at stuff like Juno, stuff like Veronica, Yusuke. Who else is magic damage? Well, whenever we get her, Water Juno, Berwick, like there's a lot of units that she's going to be able to be used alongside that is going to hit relatively hard. And also there's another one, which I said he wasn't an attacker, but technically, if you wanted to, it's not completely out of the question. You could use Miranda with Hal and see some pretty nasty damage as well, and practically turn Hal into almost a ramping damage dealer to an extent. Yeah, I think that she definitely has some interesting team comps that she can accomplish. I think she definitely has some interesting mechanics that she can play in. And another thing to point out too is that she's actually one of the most up-to-date taunt tanks that we've gotten so far in Grand Summoners. The last taunt tank that released was meta was pretty much Thetis. The other ones that came out after that was like Dark Zeorg, at least for global, and Eagle. So yeah, she's actually the newest taunt tank to release. So if we actually compare, which I don't like comparing her because they're kind of different units, but if we actually compare her to someone like Thetis, which is another extremely strong taunt tank in the game, Thetis is still undeniably, I would say, the better taunt tank out of the two, just for overall survivability and damage mitigation and just clearing harder content. I don't think that completely rules out Miranda from everything, because I personally feel like that Miranda is pretty much Thetis, but better to an extent, especially against magic fights. So if we look at both of their barriers, Miranda actually has a 27k barrier on her true art. Thetis only has a 25k barrier. She has a barrier that is what, 2000 damage stronger than the barrier that Thetis produces, which, you know, is kind of whatever, but it's not that much of a difference. Not only this, Thetis has a similar passive where he is able to have damage resist as well once he's in Magia drive, so he needs that 200 art gauge to of course access it, but once he does, he gets the damage resist plus 25% and he increases arts by 1 every time he's hit, which I think personally is probably the best passive in the game for any tank. But Miranda has the exact same thing going, but without even having to go into Magia, because as long as it is a magic damage fight, she is getting 50% damage resist to an extent, of course, against magic. Thetis isn't offering you any type of offensive viability in terms of your damage, as Miranda is actually offering some damage there. Of course, the difference between Miranda and Thetis is that Thetis is able to solo tank content by himself, like reliably and confidently. As for Miranda, she's gonna need some help, especially if you're fighting physical fights. But if you're not fighting physical fights, she can almost do it because she has 90% damage resist if you're using her true weapon, I would say. Which I'm assuming if you're going to be using this taunt tank a lot, you're going to be having her true weapon because her true weapon's just insane. So I still think that just for overall, like everything in the game, Thetis is better. But for magic fights, you now have that option of bringing Miranda. And let me just say, this isn't to say that you can't bring Miranda to physical fights. Like, for example, it's not like you can't bring Miranda to Grad. You can't bring Miranda to Ganon, right? I think that you absolutely could if you wanted to, but she is going to need some more support, like possibly a Sandstone on the team or something else. Apart from that innate magic resist, which is really good, she doesn't have any other just damage resist built into her kit, which is definitely going to hurt her later on in certain fights. She is practically, I want to say, the go-to magic taunt tank now. If you are fighting a magic boss and you want to use magic damage dealers and you have Miranda, I don't see why you wouldn't use her. To put it simple, this is probably one of the most bland greatest videos that we've ever did, because this isn't a damage dealer, right? She is enabling a lot of compositions, but she's just a tank, which I think is the reason why she's not as appealing to people, because they just see tank and they're like, ooh, bad monkey brain. But is Miranda the greatest unit in the game? No. I think that she's a very situational taunt tank that against any magic fight she will excel in, and not only against any magic fight will she excel in, against any fight that you're going to be also using a magic damage dealer in, she will also do really well, which, surprise, surprise, one of the best, let me say, in-game units in the game is, of course, Juno. And if you have Juno and Miranda, you're going to be able to do a lot of, I want to say, very hard in-game stuff. Another unit that you could use with her, like I said before, Yusuke, Veronica. The list is going to go on, especially whenever we get more magic units in the game, which, by the way, we're getting a ton in the future to the Jobless Reincarnation crossover. We just recently got Hal in the game. So we're going to have a lot of units for her to select from to be used alongside her. You could practically put any magic damage dealer beside her, and they will benefit from Miranda being on the team. The only other thing that I would say about this unit is that she is true weapon reliant, so make sure that you are getting her true weapon if you're planning on using Miranda in the long term. And whenever you use her, make sure you got a healer on your team. Maybe a Haruto, maybe a Mako. Whoever it is, just make sure that you're able to keep Miranda, you know, pretty healthy so she can take full effect of her true weapon passive, which as long as she's above 80% HP, she'll be able to get the full skill effect. I said passive, but I meant skill. You guys get the point. And I think that's practically it for this video. Miranda, the new magic taunt tank coming into the game. Now I gotta make that shitty summon on that god-awful banner. God damn it. It's gonna be it for this one. Thank you all for coming out. I know this is probably a shorter greatest unit or best unit in the game video than what we are used to. But like I said before, there's not really much to say about Miranda. She's a magic taunt tank that is able to deal with magic damage and also buff magic damage at the same time. And I'm actually really excited for it. Except I don't think I'm gonna be pulling for her on this banner. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna wait. Thank you all for coming out. It's been your boy Peter. For the like, comment, subscribe for more. And last but not least, you guys already know, don't forget to drink water.